Hey there, this is Dr. Nicole and Dr. Nick from Integrative Wellness Group, and you are watching part 3 of the Reset Your Mindset series.
Woo!
Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about setting intentions and also how to set very powerful intentions. I know that we talked a little bit about this in some of our previous modules, and we're really going through it again, but going through it in more detail because it is such an important part of this, of shifting your mindset and also starting to create the life that you really want and the life that you really deserve. So I'm actually going to let Dr. Nick explain a little bit more about just what, we mean by setting intentions, just to, create a lot of clarity around, what is the basis of this topic.
Awesome. Let's dive in. So, if you read tons of books, they all talk about intention, especially when it comes to self-help and kind of creating and manifesting the life you want to live. But what I've taken out of everything is really intention comes down to your self-talk. And self-talk is huge because self-talk is really just a perception of how you perceive you and the creation of your reality. So it's like if you haven't seen our previous 2 webinars, I highly encourage you to go back there and listen to some of that because it even defines some of this even more. But if you haven't, just to catch you up to speed, there's kind of the steps or the process of creation. And when I say creating, it's kind of things that start from your belief system that turns into your thoughts, into your ideas, which turns into your words and your vocabulary, which finally turns into actions. And those actions turn into habits and finally get you to results. So really what intention is it takes you from what I call the internal process and the external process. So the internal process are all those things that are happening internally. They are your belief systems, and they are your thoughts, and they are your attitudes. So those are all the things that we hold internally. And then there's what I explain as our external reality, and those are all the physical things that are happening. Those are the actions we're taking. Those are actually the vocabulary words we're speaking. Those are the habits that we perform every single day. So intentions, I like to think of, they are the very last part of that internal process that creates the bridge to you finally experiencing the physical reality. The physical kind of, when I say cause and effect, they're the effects of your internal being, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just such a funny coincidence that yesterday, one of the movies that we actually watched when we got home was called Focus by, or Will Smith is one of the primary actors in it. And, when we turned it on, it was right around the one segment of the movie that he was gambling with someone and, just making bets essentially. But what it turned out is
very large bets.
Yeah, very large bets. But what it turned out is there was a method to the madness, and he pretty much set this guy up by training his subconscious mind in order to win the bet. And if you watch the segment of the movie, it's when they are at the football game and they're specifically in the box suite with, these set of people. But it's such an interesting thing because through the entire over the course of 2 days, that there were all of these different things that they put in place in order to train or put the number 55 into this man's subconscious mind, which was later going to set him up for losing the bet, essentially. But it was different things from visual to different things that he heard, different things that were even in the music that was playing in the box suite. It was so interesting when you watch the step-by-step of how they influenced his subconscious into kind of having that number 55 just locked in. And I started to really think about that in reference to what we were going to talk about today. And the reason being is, Dr. Nick is talking about how there are so many steps to this process of intention and so many steps to this process of creation. And it really comes down to, our thoughts. It comes down to our emotions. But so much of that is influenced by our environment. And when you read up on, these really important people that have done, major life-changing things, or have done, different things to change the world over the course of time, these are people that read a lot, maybe didn't necessarily watch a lot of TV, didn't necessarily even watch the news. And it's because they understood that value of the subconscious mind. Because unfortunately, nowadays, if you really start to, pay attention as you watch TV, we have so many pharmaceutical commercials that are played,
It's crazy.
every other commercial. We have different types of organizations supporting, women with cancer, and I understand this is things going on in the world, but these are things that almost go into our subconscious and almost allow us to be like, well, I'm going to get sick eventually. It's just a matter of time, because this is what happens. This is what is reality. And then when you watch the news, you see violence, and, they are not necessarily showing some of the positives that are happening in the world. It's the corrupt politics, it's the violence, it's the shootings, it's, the negative things happening in our schools. And I feel like a lot of these things kind of program our subconscious to maybe limit us in what we actually want, because when we sit back and say, I want to have that better job, or I want to have that big house, or I want to have that wealth, or I just want to be happy, we have that in the subconscious saying, no, you can't have that, because this is reality. Violence is reality. Corrupt is reality. And I think that we don't need to live in a world of woo-woo, but whatever you want is 100% attainable. But it's also,
it takes a lot of action and a lot of effort.
Well, that was exactly where I was going to go next, is you have to be willing to pay the price for what you want. And this is something so interesting, because even in the book Think and Grow Rich, they talk a lot about this. And, when I sat back and thought about it, initially you could be like, oh, like, what does that mean? You have to pay the price for what you want. But it's really thinking about some of these really pivotal people, pivotal people in the world that did really big things. They didn't do these things overnight. They didn't set an intention to say, I want to make one of the best automobiles in the world. And it happened within a month, 2 months, 6 months, and this is even in reference to Henry Ford. This was perseverance. This was desire. These were things that they wanted so bad, but they were also willing to put in the work. And it took a long time before anybody even noticed, let alone anybody even cared. And I think that's an important thing to take away when you're setting intentions.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback that, we read something in the news, or we hear something on the news, or we hear something from a friend that, oh my God, this new invention or this and that, and it just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, but if you read autobiographies, one of my favorite things to read is, about successful people, but there's a lot of hardship that goes in their life and a lot of learnings,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not, the hardship was fun, weirdly to say, is that the enjoyment throughout life, whether, it was quote unquote a positive or a negative, it was, for them, it was an experience that they took away and they learned, and they persevered to becoming and achieving who they wanted to be. And it's just like the whole story she talked about, kind of going back to the very beginning of the movie Focus, and that little clip of the movie is like, Will Smith and his gang put a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort to trick that guy's subconscious mind to pick a football player with the numbers 55.
Mm-hmm.
They had it on the chandelier, they had it on signs, they had it on roadways, they had jerseys made up at 55. They had, even in front of a courtyard, politicians and people that were, holding up clauses for 55. And it's just like, that was a lot to trick this person's mind subconsciously, and he didn't even know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, she's talking about going through in the news and your environment and listen to your friends if they're complainers or the negative Nancy's in life, and like all these things subconsciously, even if you're like, no, that's not me, but subconsciously in the back of your mind, that's programming your subconscious mind. And it's really your subconscious mind that's creating your reality.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for you to take control of your life to get results, you have to be conscious of that. We have to, and that's one of my biggest frustrations right now is that we live in a world where we don't realize our subconscious and what it creates because we're being entertained every day. I mean, you can't go somewhere and see somebody not doing something. They're on their phone or they're talking, or it's just like we're always being entertained. And, you know, which is great. I love to be entertained, but it doesn't allow you the time to go inward and really figure out who you are and what you want to create those things. And once you do, that's, you know, the steps before the intention. But once you figure out who you are and what you really want out of life, then you take the intention, the self-talk, to pretty much harness every situation. Like if you're going to make a phone call, this before I pick up the phone and dial it, you know, what's the intent that I want to get out of this phone call? What's it going to look like? What's going to feel like? I mean,
I even feel like we have a tendency to do the negative. If you're making a call that you've been maybe dreading to do, or you're calling to have that maybe uncomfortable situation or conversation, you know, you go, well, this is not going to be fun. And then you make the call. So we are always setting intentions. It's just unfortunate that we are most of the time setting negative intentions. And it's just being conscious of the words that you say to yourself, because, you know, if you have to call, say, I don't know, the cell phone company, we usually have that gut feeling like, am I going to be on hold for 6 hours to just, you know, accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish here? And, you know, what we've tried to do is, you know, almost flip and switch that and to say, you know, I'm so excited and grateful that I'm only going to be on the phone for 2 minutes max and be able to accomplish, you know, what I'm trying to accomplish. And setting that intention before you make that call, you'd be really surprised on how you can, you know, completely change the course of how that call goes, if it's positive, or, you know, if it's going to be more uplifting instead of being stressful, or even if it's just, you know, not being stuck on the phone for a long period of time. So you definitely would be surprised on how powerful those intentions can be. But interesting enough, go ahead.
So I don't know if we got into this. I don't know if we really explained what intention is. We got a little excited. So really intention is just your focus of the desired outcome that you want to happen before the event. So like she said on the phone call, she set an intention of her desired outcome of what was going to happen before it actually occurred. To make that even more powerful, like Will Smith in the movie, like, you know, the law of attraction, just everything, you have to use as much energy, as much emotion, and the more senses of the body, the better. So thinking is one thing, feeling is one thing, visualizing another, saying it out loud, you know, makes the auditory experience. So the more you can do and experience and increase that vibrational emotion aspect of it, the better chances are that that intention is going to come true.
Well, that's even how we were mentioning that we have so many different things that are influencing our subconscious on a daily basis, from the commercials to the news to maybe our negative work environment, or, you know, friends and family complaining, things like that. You know, you have to take that into consideration of, if you're in a negative mindset right now and everything that I just listed off, you go, that's me. You know, I got mom complaining. I have kids that are being rebellious. My negative work environment, everybody's gossiping. And then I go home and I watch the news every day and I get sad because of all the violence in the world. Like, if that's what your day-to-day looks like, you have to think about how much effort to retraining your subconscious has to go in order to start achieving and manifesting what you do want, which would be more positive. So it's everything from setting what your intention is, whatever that goal is, setting it in the verbiage that you have already achieved it. And this is what they call auto-suggestion. So if you have suggested to yourself that you have already attained it, then this is a lot more powerful when you use different tools to put it into your subconscious. And like Nick said, you need to be influencing your subconscious from a visual standpoint, an auditory standpoint, and even with the repetition of it. So if you know what your intention is and you write it down on a card, even if it's just an index card, you have that index card on your bedside. You read it when you wake up, you read it when you go to bed. Then you can maybe even make a bigger version of that, and you can put that in your car. You can put it on the right, next to your computer at your office. You can put it on the mirror in the bathroom, and you can put it in your car on the dashboard. You can put it in all these different places so you keep seeing it, you keep seeing it, you keep seeing it. And then even being able to say it out loud, so then you start to stimulate the auditory component of that. So this is what they mean when they say, you have to be willing to put in the time for what you want, for the reward, for what you want to achieve. And it's that perseverance and it's the repetition to retrain the subconscious and be able to manifest what you truly want. Because again, you're combating so much of the negative that maybe you didn't even realize has been being put into your subconscious. But again, it's everywhere. It's the TV, it's the people that you're around. It's a little bit of everything nowadays.
And to really get to where you want to be as quick as possible, you have to work internally and externally to get to that. So it's like, the perseverance, it's internally, it's being conscious of, putting yourself into an environment that's positive and everything she was talking about, and, going throughout the day where you're affecting your subconscious mind as much as possible to lead you in the direction of, achieving your desires and dreams and goals. But at the same time, you have to do the physical actions that affect the body and affect the mind. Because if you just work on the mind and there's no external stimulus to that, it falls short. It doesn't have that much energy. I think I talked about the flywheel, and like you push it and it's really hard to move it, and you finally push it and you get a little momentum going. That momentum starts internally, and it starts with your beliefs and your mindset pattern. But to really get a lot more energy and to really spin that sucker fast, you have to take physical action towards those goals and towards those dreams and desires. So it's not like perseverance just on focusing the mindset. It's also perseverance on doing the physical actions and taking the steps.
Yeah, and I think even like a good example, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a good example of that is saying, I don't like my work environment, I want a new job, and then obviously getting more specific about maybe what you want to do, if you want to help people or if you want to work with kids or whatever the case may be. And you set your intention and you have your goal card and you're super excited about it and you're reading it out loud every day, and you have all of your affirmations in your car and at your office and all of these, maybe not at your office, but all of these great places. But then you haven't actively looked at maybe positions that are open, and you haven't maybe fixed up your resume, and you haven't necessarily sent your resume. I think, and is that where you were going with it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it's taking those action steps as well, because you can be so excited, and maybe somebody's going to come up to you and present an opportunity, but you're going to be more inclined to get that opportunity if you're maybe going out and talking about it more, or you're putting yourself out there and you're putting your resume out there, and you're actively looking for that job. So it is definitely about taking action as well. Even if it's go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, it's like, I know, excuse my language, a shit ton on the mind. And I read every day, at least half an hour on the mind, on the brain, and some way to increase performance and potential on the body. If I keep that to myself, I may have a lot of knowledge, but I really don't own it, because to become an expert or to have ownership, you have to help people, you have to teach people, you have to express that, and it has to take physical action, which is what that is. So I wanted to be really known and help people with their mindset. Well, that doesn't start with me just knowing a lot about it. It's like we're doing these webinars for that purpose, is, to get the word out there, to take the physical action to help people on their journey of becoming who they want to be and experiencing more health and experience more happiness and, more wealth. It's living more congruently with your values.
Yeah, and sometimes I guess that takes getting out of your comfort zone, which is not always the easiest, but it's 100% worth it in order to, really manifest and start living the life that you want. They always say the saying about change, and change is never a comfortable thing, but a lot of us do want change, and it's really just taking that first step to get out of that comfort zone so that you can be open to so many possibilities. So really start with using some of the other modules that we gave and provided in order to figure out, what do you truly want, and what are some of the most important things that you want to see change with in your life, and then being able to kind of use these different tools that we talked about today with, starting to retrain the subconscious mind so that you can truly achieve, what you are trying to achieve. Because like we said, you're really going to you're retraining the subconscious from a lot of things that have been put into it over the course of not just a year, but many years. So be patient with yourself, and really just enjoy the process. And
Yeah.
it can be so amazingly rewarding. And it's just being aware and being conscious of even taking yourself out of those situations of negativity that might be taking you back to that place where you don't want to be.
Just before we sign off on this one, I was just saying thank you so much for listening to us and being, a part of our purpose. If you enjoyed any of this content, please forward it to a friend. And if you have any questions, below, write your question, or if you want us to focus on a specific topic, add that on a comment down below on the YouTube video as well.
Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.